Yo, what's going on, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be covering the real reason that prospects don't trust you and you're not able to close them. They always got to think about it. They always got to talk to the spouse, even though you know they don't want to talk to the spouse. They always want a card. Look, I promise you it's not your scripts. So if you're the kind of person that's in any kind of sales, any kind of business where you deal with a lot of people and you're struggling to connect with them, you're struggling to get them to listen to you, be open with you so that you can help them provide value with whatever product or service you provide and close the deal, and you feel like you're doing everything right, but something just isn't working, then this is for you. I promise you this is going to help a ton. Well, that brings me to my first point that I want you to understand. If you're in any kind of sales or you're dealing with a lot of people, prospects decide whether they're going to trust you and kind of create their perception of you literally within the first 7 to 10 seconds of meeting you. And a lot of the time, most of it has nothing to do with what you're saying. So to kind of get into the neuroscience of it, you need to first realize that over millions and millions and millions of years, our brains have developed a subconscious kind of safety scan that happens whenever we're in a new situation or we meet people, kind of a trust detection system. Now, this was developed in order for us to survive, right? Kind of the same system that gazelle have when they're in the wild and they hear a little crack in the distance and they all freak out and their cortisol goes through the roof. They run away and they live. As Simon Sinek says, good system, right? We have kind of a similar thing when we meet somebody and we subconsciously kind of gauge them. And it's kind of to give you an idea, the same thing or feeling that you feel when somebody walks into the room and they don't even have to say one word, but you just kind of catch a bad vibe off of them. Whether you realize it or not, your brain is scanning their body language, how they present themselves, what they look like, their micro expressions on their face. Whether you realize this, or not, this is happening. And that's where you get that bad feeling about somebody, or a really, really good feeling where you're comfortable with somebody right from the jump. And it's a combination of different things, but usually within the first 7 to 10 seconds, we gauge kind of the person that we're meeting, our perception of them, and whether we feel comfortable with them or not. And this is what your prospects do. Right when you start a conversation with your prospects, they're trying to figure out, are you confident or are you nervous, right? Are you authentic or are you putting on an act? Are you there to just take their money or are you there to actually help them? Should they be on defense or, can they be comfortable with you? All of this is happening in the prospect's mind right when they meet you. And I think this is one of the biggest and most frustrating challenges for a lot of people getting into sales, which is a people business, right? Sales is all about people and relationship building. And if you don't understand people, if you don't understand psychology and neuroscience and what's going on in the mind, it's really tough for you to make adjustments so that people feel comfortable with you. So now that you understand that, what's going on in the prospect's mind, this safety scan that goes on, this kind of trust detection system that's going on, now that you understand that, you can really critique yourself, and we can go into some details of how you can make sure the signals that you're sending to prospects are ones that make them comfortable, that show them that you're trustworthy, that you're credible, that they can be relaxed around you, and make sure that you don't go through the frustration that most rookies do, where they think they're doing their scripts perfectly, they're doing their roadmaps perfectly, maybe all their technicalities are on point, but they're sending these small signals that they're not aware of to the prospect that trigger this safety system in them, where the prospect's uptight. Maybe they feel like you're being authentic, you're just trying to take their money, etc. And that's, going to destroy trust. And therefore, if there's no trust, then there's going to be no deal. So after years and years and years of trying to perfect this in my own sales ability, as well as training hundreds of new salespeople and helping them correct some of these signals that they're unknowingly sending to prospects, these are the 4 biggest trust killers that I think are the most common for salespeople, and the 4 signals that they are sending to prospects unknowingly most of the time that are putting prospects on edge, not making them comfortable around you as a salesperson, and ultimately leading to them saying, I want to think about it. I need to talk to the spouse, or any other excuse to not buy from you. The first biggest trust killer is nervous energy. And I say energy as kind of a combination between your body language and your tonality. Your words might be perfect, your scripts might be on point, but your body language, your tonality, just your overall energy that you're giving off says the complete opposite. And this can come in the form of talking way too fast with the prospect. That's going to make you sound more nervous and desperate. It can come in the form of you dodging eye contact. Eye contact is incredibly important to establish trust with a prospect when you're talking to somebody. So if you're dodging eye contact, you're not sure enough of yourself, or not confident enough to lock eyes with them, tell them what you're doing, right? That can come off as a lack of confidence. Fidgeting, movements, right? You're moving around too much, unnecessary movements, a shaky voice, right? Just all of those little nervous pieces of body language and tonality and just your overall energy. That is the first biggest trust killer, because if you're familiar with communication, which you should be, sales is all about communication, words are a very small part of communication. The biggest part of communication first, that a prospect's mind, their trust detection system that we talked about, their safety scanning that happens without them really even being aware of it, is they subconsciously scan your body language, how you carry yourself, right? Your posture, is there a smile on your face? That's why you can kind of catch a vibe off somebody and a feeling off someone before they even speak, right? And then the second thing behind body language is tonality. Not the words you say, but how you say it, the passion behind which you speak, right? That's kind of for me, the definition of tonality. Tonality is the passion behind which you speak, right? And also if your tone is authentic to you, right? And so overall, nervous energy, nervous body language, tonality, maybe your words are on point, but everything else says that you're nervous. That's going to show a complete lack of confidence, and it's going to kill trust. So the solution to this is confident energy, right? Expert kind of energy, speaking nice and slow because you're not desperate and you want them to understand you and you're not in a rush, right? Only necessary movements. So if you have nothing you're pointing out or nothing you're explaining to them, stand in one place. Why do you need to move around? Relaxed, confident energy. And this is obviously going to build a lot more trust with people. The second biggest trust killer is inferior status. This is where you put the prospect on this crazy high pedestal in your mind, and they're way up here, you're way down here. And this comes in the form of you being way nicer to them than you normally would, kind of fake compliments. This is you apologizing for taking their time, right? I'm so sorry for taking your time. Let me just explain this to you. This is you asking permission to kind of sell them. This is like the worst thing I ever heard, when sales reps say stuff like, do you mind if I show you this? Can I show you this? Just sell them, show them what you're there to show them, right? Try to sell them. If they're not interested, they'll tell you, but don't ask permission, try to sell them, right? And so it's just this status inferiority. And this is kind of starts in your mind and your self-image as a salesman. You need to change this, and you need to see yourself as being equal with the prospect. If anything, you're the expert. You have the solution to their problem. If anything, you might even be a little bit above them. You should be. They kind of want you to be, right? They want you to be the expert. When I buy something from somebody, I want them to be the expert, right? In the situation that I'm trying to get help in, right? But at the very least, you are equal with them. So no fake compliments. You don't need to treat them as royalty, right? Just be a genuine human with them, connect with them, and keep that in your mind, that you are level playing field with them. They are not way up here and you're way down here just because you're trying to sell them, right? Equal playing field. The third biggest trust killer is pushiness and over aggressiveness. And in the defense of a lot of people getting into sales, a lot of them are trained and kind of get this perspective that you need to be like this in sales in order to close deals. And it's the complete opposite, typically these kind of guys, these savage dudes, these guys who are just bulldozing through objections, talking over people, being overly aggressive. Yeah, you might be able to bulldoze a few people into buying, but a lot of the time right after you close them, they're just going to end up canceling anyways. Or if they can't cancel, leave you a horrible review, which affects your reputation going on. it brings me back to what I always say. Sales is the people business, and you need to have really good people skills. So if you went and tried to make friends with somebody in public and you just were an asshole and bulldozing them and, talking over them and not listening to them, are they going to like you? Are they going to want to be friends with you? No, of course not. So sales is the business of connecting with people. And so to kind of fix this perspective for anyone out there, you don't need to be an asshole to be good at sales. You don't need to be a savage to overcome objections. You can, push people, right, without being aggressive and without coming off as just like, shoving the product or service down their throat until they buy. That's not how the best of the best guys do it. The analogy I always gave, for example, for objections is, kind of float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Or the way I would put it is camouflage the way you overcome objections. This is how I always taught overcoming objections. Camouflage the way you do it, where you are really pushing people as far as moving past their objections, their third or their fourth objection, but you do it in a way where you're masking kind of the pushing that you're doing through using effective questions, through certain phrases, right? For example, when I did door-to-door selling pest control and someone told me for the third or fourth time, dude, let me just think this over, let me do this. I would always say, absolutely, I agree with them. I definitely want to make sure that you're fully comfortable with this before we move forward. Hey, before I head out though, let me at least do this. Listen to those phrases. I want you to be fully comfortable with what you're doing. Bring the guard down. Before I head out of here, right? Makes them feel like I'm going to leave and the sale's over. I'm kind of camouflaging, the fact that I'm about to try to overcome their objection. And then I would, say something like, before I leave, let me at least do this. Let me make sure my quote is fully accurate for you, just to make sure you have the best price, that, when you're thinking this over, you have the most accurate price. Let me just do a 360 with you around the property to see if I can shave a few bucks off. That way, when you're thinking this over, you have the most accurate price. And they're always like, awesome, this is great. I kind of camouflaged my way. Little do they know, I'd move them around the house. I'd find more bug problems, more value to build up the problem a little bit more, build some urgency, drop the price, close the deal, sincerity. Next thing they know, I'm signing them up. But I did it in a strategic way where I'm not pushy. I'm not like, let me just go, let me do an inspection, let me do this. No. Phrase it in a way. These are humans, man. Keep them comfortable. These are people, right? Imagine if somebody's bulldozing you, out in public or something, right? You're going to hate this dude. You're going to think this guy's an asshole, right? And so pushiness over aggressiveness, this is one of the biggest misconceptions in sales, I think. You don't need to be like this in order to sell, but you can push what you need to, because people hate change still. You still need to push people a little bit, right? But you can do it in a way where they still like you, and you do it in a way where it's strategic and where it doesn't make them feel like you're just bulldozing them, right? Number 3, over pushiness, over aggressiveness. Don't do this. You're going to kill trust. All right. And trust killer number 4 is inauthenticity. Okay. And I think this comes in the form of script dependence for a lot of rookies or new people getting into sales, at least in my experience from people that I've trained, where they're trying their best to get their scripts down. And by the way, I think this is what was going on with me as far as the story that I gave you at the beginning with the middle-aged guy that was super nice to me. I think I was so obsessed with studying my scripts that, I killed the personality element to my pitch. And, I came off very, very inauthentic, even if I didn't realize it, because a lot of new salespeople, they're trying so hard to get their scripts down where they feel like, I know my scripts, I'm saying, all the right things. But what they don't realize is because they're too over-dependent on scripts, they're coming off super robotic, super inauthentic, and just not real. And if you're not, feeling real and authentic with people, what do they think you're there trying to do when you're selling them? If you're not being real with them, well, you obviously have another agenda, which is just there to take their money. You're putting on some act, putting on some mask. So inauthenticity, and specifically in the form of just script dependence. It can be robotic body language. It can be, once again, those fake compliments, where you're trying too hard to be nice to people. But specifically, I want to nail down on scripts. And the solution to this is to be roadmap oriented. Have the overall roadmap and checkpoints of your pitch down. kind of the checkpoints that you want to guide the customer down to strategically close them, right? Might, typically, the most, general way to look at this is number one, I call it the simple roadmap. Number one, spot the problem, right? You always have to start a sale with a problem. Once a problem is established, you open up the door for a solution, right? If there's no problem, then what are we doing here, right? So you spot the problem. Then you want to establish the pain associated with that problem. So not just, spotting what's the problem, then what's the pain, what's the emotion attached to that, because people don't buy logic, they buy on emotion, right? So you want to indicate the pain. M in this simple roadmap is match with the solution. So then you want to discuss your solution. You want to generate value, right? After really getting them to associate with the pain of that problem, right? Match them with the solution. P is to present the benefits. So the emotions attached with the solution, right? What are the good emotions that you want them to start associating with their desired outcome? L is lay out the price. This acronym helps me remember it. L is for lay out the price in a confident way, right? Using price anchoring and all those other price strategies that maybe I'll talk about in another video. Going over price and negotiating properly is a huge part of selling. And then E, after you lay out the price, is execute the close, right? So that's kind of the general roadmap, but obviously depending on your industry, what you sell, the kind of how fast usually a deal in your industry is closed. If you're in real estate, that's really long, right? If you're in door-to-door, it's typically a shorter closing timeline. Then you're going to adjust that a little bit. But that's the overall roadmap. So what I'm saying is be more obsessed with guiding customers down that roadmap. You know your roadmaps very, very, very well. Then you want to get your scripts down, kind of add to that skeleton, the scripts, but you don't need to say your scripts perfectly every single time. Just get the same message across. Know the message that you want to get across to consumers and make sure that you hit on that message. And if you're more focused on the message and not just kind of reading the script out of your mind, you're going to sound a lot less, robotic. You're going to sound a lot more authentic in that you're just genuinely trying to explain something to them, as opposed to if you're trying to get the script perfect in your head where you're like, what do I say here? What do I say here? Then it's going to sound like you're literally reading a book off to them, because that's essentially what you're doing out of your mind, right? So number 4, trust killer, is script dependency, just overall inauthenticity. And so be more roadmap oriented, not script oriented. Authenticity is absolutely everything. And this comes from you just having the right intention, with people. I've talked about it in other videos, but sales is a very powerful skill. It can be used for good or bad, just like any other powerful weapon, right? If your intention is moving people towards a negative outcome where your product or service doesn't really help them, or you're lying to them, to move them towards a negative outcome, get them to commit to something that they wouldn't regularly want to do because you don't have integrity, just for your own personal gain, you are manipulating. You're not selling. You're just a manipulator. You're a liar, right? You have no integrity. If you're using your sales ability to move people towards a better outcome because it'll genuinely add value to their life, even though people hate change, they always do, right? But you using your persuasion and communication ability, you're able to push them a little bit strategically without coming off like an asshole, right? Camouflaging your objection handling, but you're moving them towards a positive outcome, then you're helping them, right? And prospects can pick up on this. We talked about the safety scan, and them being able to kind of subconsciously gauge you. They can feel this off of you. If you're inauthentic and you have bad intentions, it's almost like this stench that comes off of you. They can smell it on you. They can smell the sales, the commission breath off of you, right? And everybody hates those kind of salespeople. So you want to make sure your intention's in the right place. That's a big part of authenticity. Overall, revolve your entire mentality when selling them, your entire pitch about them, right? Learning more about them, asking questions about them, less about you, more about them. And by doing that, that's just a sales principle to live by, but I think that's just a life principle to live by, right? The more value you provide, the more you will get. Earl Nightingale, right? Your income will always be in direct proportion with the amount of value that you provide. And when you're selling, right, you can make a lot of money if that is your main focus and you do everything you can to provide value. And that comes in a lot of different forms, but overall, just be obsessed with that. Value, value, value. Learn as much about them as possible. Get incredible at selling and communicating your solution so that you can provide value. Ask a lot of questions to learn about what they want, what specific goals and desired outcome they have, where they're at right now, and the problems that are in the way so that you can solve their problems. Just value, value, value. If you do that, people are gonna love you. So that's the trust building formula: confidence, authenticity, and value. Learning more about all this stuff, psychology, the mind, people in general, are going to help you sell people, because sales is all about people. So the more that you can combine your knowledge of people, your knowledge of building trust with people and getting them to be comfortable around you, and just your overall people skills and social skills, the more you can combine that with, high level sales technicality, because of course that's important, the principles, the fundamentals of selling at a high level. If you can combine those two, man, you will be an absolute killer in sales, because at the end of the day, once again, sales is all about people. Sales is the people business. I don't care whatever it is you sell, whatever industry you're in. I want you to think of it right now, actually. What industry do you sell in? What product or service do you sell in? Think of it right now. You got it on your mind? Okay, now get rid of it. It doesn't matter, because you're not in that industry. Okay, you are in the people business. So go out there and build some damn trust with people. Be human with them, and avoid the 4 trust destroyers that we talked about. Keep in mind the trust building formula and understand the neuroscience behind what's going on in people's mind when you're trying to do business with them. By understanding people more, by understanding yourself more, you're going to be a much better salesman. If you got value out of this, please hit the like button. This helps my content reach more people out there. And you can also find me on Instagram at James T Creates. You can find more content where I talk about all this kind of stuff: psychology-backed sales, the neuroscience behind it, self-development, the mind, philosophy, entrepreneurship, personal branding, all the stuff I'm really passionate about. And consider subscribing if you're interested in any of this stuff. I'm going to be posting weekly, and I will see you in the next one, my friend.